Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Way of God's Remembrance. This is presented by Awake to Love. I'm Lee here with Cindy. We are the volunteer Zoom hosts and so grateful that you are here. You have arrived at a special gathering. This is a 2-hour gathering. Michael Hayes, co-founder of Awake to Love, is joined by Alicia Das, fellow co-founder of Awake to Love, and to my knowledge, the world's foremost authority on the angelic kingdom. For the highest good, we will enjoy more sharing, more wisdom, and more remembrance. As a way of introduction, I will read Michael's words to bring clarity to the focus and format of this gathering. This is a weekly gathering for those seeking greater awareness of their true nature. There are many paths and approaches to higher consciousness and to greater awakening to who we truly are. The essence, the truth of all these paths is more about remembering who we are and have always been rather than becoming something different or more than we have seen ourselves to be. A way of God's remembrance goes to the heart, to the intention of all the paths. This is what we will explore together each week. Michael and Alicia will share thoughts and awarenesses that come forward as relevant and purposeful for our time together, followed by questions and answers related to what they share about. We will begin with an invocation of light to help support us all to be in collective alignment. After the light invocation, we will play a recording to lead us in Anai Hugh chanting. And looking for Ron, who I saw a moment ago, to lead us. And here's Ron. All right, we'll ask Ron to unmute and see if you pop into visibility for all.
Can you hear me?
Very well, thank
Oh,
you and bless you.
all right. Lord God of all creation, we come before you this evening with love in our hearts. And my first thank you for the computer starting into work after it wasn't going in and out. And Lord, we ask for the light to fill, surround, protect us all, and be directed especially at this very, very important time in history, connected with the turn of the millennium and our choice to face into the future with new loving and greater awareness of what's available to us. We send that light ahead, Lord, and we say, as always, thy will be done. So be it.
Hello. Are we the only ones who didn't hear the Anna here, or is that everybody? I don't.
Cindy told me she did not hear it as well. So perhaps it was more of an inner process for this gathering.
I think so. So how about we all mute, including us and everybody, let's do an Anna Hugh so joyous in our space that we uplift our neighborhood, which happens to be planet Earth. And let's do 6 Anna Hughes. And actually, Michael and I, we won't mute, and then you all do Anna Hughes with us, but everybody else will be muted, okay? You'll get up for that?
Sure. Good idea.
Okay. Anna.
Anna. You. Anna.
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 You really want me to start? I will. Michael leaned over about, I don't know, 2 seconds before Lee asked us to unmute and said, "You're starting." I went, "No, starting. You start your class." He's like, "You start. I'm not ready." So I'm not ready either, but I'm going to start. Can you hear me okay if this is?
Actually, the sound is so unusual for this gathering. Folks are saying in the chat in and out on the sound, but when you bring that microphone close to you, the sound is so good. So if you're open for a little bicep exercises, I think will be just great. Now we're hearing nothing. Maybe you turned it off.
I turned it off. Oh my gosh. I can live out my rock star fantasies. See, because I got like my thing here. You want me to sing for you? Because that'll clear the space. Michael Hayes just shook his head. I just think that we should just note that. Okay. Um, so in this moment, I'm going to ask that we actually start off with a meditation that we did. Michael did a very advanced, very small class that some of you were in, maybe, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago. This tiny class, and we worked with the higher sounds, which is not something I was planning on doing, but let's. I don't know. Are you guys seeing me? This is a very exciting technical class. If you're seeing me, can you just give me a thumbs up? Because I'm not. Yeah.
Alicia, the
Yes.
way we do it when you and Michael share is we do not spotlight you so that Michael doesn't have to have his eyes on himself. So anybody can place their Zoom
Great.
into speaker view, but your video is excellent. Your voice is mellifluous, and we are good.
Nice word. Oh, I love that. I do not like looking at I like much rather look at you. Okay, so are you okay if I do this? Okay. Um, so there are beautiful sounds that, interestingly, I heard them for quite a while and I never told anybody about them. But I worked them inside for a while. And then Michael, at the same time, was hearing the same sounds and also wasn't talking about them. And then at some point, because that's what we tend to do, is to work something for a long time and make sure it works, and then we'll share it with a small group of people and make sure it's efficacious, and then we'll share it wider. So this is an example that it's very beautiful, and it's been quite beautiful to see how we were hearing the same sounds. So when I shared this in the class that we did, I had a whole diagram and you guys got to see the sounds. So we're not going to do that now, but we're going to just play with it. This is a big risk. I think I'm going to make a note to seed even more than I already did. I am a prodigious seeder. So seeding is when you give money to your spiritual source, to the physical representation of your spiritual source. Michael Hayes just grabbed his phone to do a seed as well, I think. And it is a way of forward tithing where you're faithing that what you are being called towards, what you want, has already occurred, because there is no time or space. Everything's already happened. And so it's faithing that what you want has already occurred. And so you're giving gratitude to Spirit, to God, for what you intend in your consciousness for the highest good, always keeping in mind the highest good. So if you would, let's just start with a meditation. And I'm going to tell you some sounds, and you just will chant the sound. Outwardly, these are not confidential. So outwardly, if you're by yourself, if you feel more comfortable inwardly, then do it inwardly. And so we're going to start with the hue. And if you start traveling, if you start experiencing spirit and would prefer to sit in silence and be with the experience, by all means do. Okay? So only participate in the meditation if it's moving, if it's effective for you, etc. So of course we'll start off with a hue. We're going to do it a little differently than we might be used to. So you start off with hue. And I would love for you to out loud in your space chant the hue and see if your body wants to move with it in a subtle form of mudra. You keep chanting the hue while I'm speaking to you. So mudra is a hand, a movement with your hands. And you might, so just allow your hands to move as you chant the hue and see if a gesture repeats. I'm going to set the mic down. For me, this is an example of a mudra, right? Where it just tends to repeat. And so just chant the hue, 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 and then see where in your body that sound wants to go. Hue. And of course, we're very familiar with this from John Rogers' Luxor meditation. And now see where in your consciousness you need the hue. And just match that hue to any repeating thought that doesn't serve you. See the hue matching with that thought, and then both lifting up. And if you could keep chanting the hue, Michael, that would be fantastic. And now be aware also that your guardian angel, yes, everyone has one, your guardian angel can now take any negative thoughts out of your head, and you may not be conscious of what those are. They may be deep in the unconscious. And your guardian angel can lift those out and replace them with divine light. That's a little known technique we can use with our guardian angel, especially if you're being bugged by a repeating thought. You can just say, please, beloved, take it out of my mind and replace it with divine light, divine thoughts. And now match that hue with an emotion. Perhaps if you've been anxious or worried, maybe about politics or the state of your world, a child, a loved one's health, match that hue. It's like you have the hue in one hand and your concern in the other and the emotions, and you're lifting both up at the same time. So you're pairing the hue with that emotional concern. And maybe it's just, I don't want to feel this sadness that I don't even know what it's connected to. Maybe you wake up with it or go to sleep with it. So you just send up that emotion with the hue. Hue. And that hue might change tone. It might be, oh, I need you. And now we'll go into the unconscious. And of course, by virtue of it being unconscious, this is where you go on faith. It might be something from your genetics, from your ancestral line, from the planet, a collective angst. Couple that hue with anything in the unconscious. Trust that Spirit's going to take it for you. Lifting up that hue with the unconscious, anything that's unresolved, any wounds, etc. Lift it up with the hue. Keep sending it up with the hue and the unconscious unfulfillment. Beautiful. And we just ask the Spirit, ask the Christ, ask the traveler to complete anything in the physical, imagination, astral, causal, mental, and unconscious etheric levels. Let it be completed. What we have started in earnest be completed to excellence and then perfection through the Christ and the traveler. And now we go into the soul level. And here, again, one last time, chanting the hue, then going well above soul through the levels. Hue, letting that hue take you up and up and up, dropping your reference points. Evoking and invoking the spiritual law of assumption. If you want God consciousness, you must assume it. And one last hue, all together. Hue. And now we're going to use a new sound. And let's see what Spirit wants. And that's going to be the ta sound. So we're going to, it's an ancient sound, often heard well above the soul level. So ta, ta. And as you keep chanting the ta, it may go to an area below the soul. It may go well above the soul. And 3 more of those, and we'll move to another sound. Ta, ta, ta. And now the ma. Ma, ma, ma. And now the ah. Ah, ah, ah. And now allow yourself to go within and keep chanting the ah sound within and just see where it takes your consciousness. And now couple it with a hue. One last one. Jaw. 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 And just let that drop into silence and see where spirit takes you. And just to close out this part, just receive on the breath of God, the prana, as God breathes you, receiving the awareness that you are one with essence, one with spirit, one with the sound in the silence. As John Rogers says, the silence that roars the name of the light. And suddenly you remember as the curtain is swept aside, and you know this bright country is from whence you have come. And you actually never left. And you now walk feet firmly on the ground, head in the heavens. And some would call that heaven on earth. And so even as you travel the high ground, all of your life and all of your consciousness on all levels is spiritualized, brought into oneness, brought into divine intention, which is always love. Amen.
Yeah, we have to do a new arrangement for this. Use this.
Well, I hope you found benefit from that. I thought it was very relaxing and uplifting and opening to potential and possibility. part of coming into God's remembrance is not only coming into remembrance of, we could say, the highest form or nature of God, but it's also coming to remembrance of the God that is in all, and therefore into all the manifestations, all the facets of God. There's nowhere God is not. There's nothing God is not part of. So remembrance includes so many dimensions, and you might come awake, come into remembrance of some of the highest dimensions of God, and then your God might bring your consciousness down into something less exalted, and you might learn about the fullness of God in that part of creation, and you might learn about the fullness of God in a different part of creation. This is the ultimate realization, the realization not simply of the multidimensionality of God, but the multifaceted nature of God. There's nowhere God is not, there's nothing God is not part of. I said it before, I'll say it again. And when it's said that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, we usually think, oh, there's this ideal, amazing place that I'm distracted from by being focused into the world. If I let my focus of the world go, I'll have this focus into the kingdom of heaven. That's really true, but we tend to think of it spatially, like I'm distracted by what's going on in this physical space, which is blocking me from knowing God in this subtle, intangible space. But the paradox of it all is God is entirely in all the dimensions and aspects, including in space. And it's again paradoxical because you're transcending time and space to come into the remembrance of God. But then when you really come into the fullness and the remembrance of God, you wake up to the truth of God in all things, and that includes time and space. So it's works like that, but it's a strange thing because if we say, well, I'm just going to know God in space and God in time, we're going to fall short of that because we're still the I doing it. So it's the surrender of the I, the surrender of the individuation, the surrendering of the self, the surrendering of the limitations of consciousness, the defined nature of consciousness. First and foremost, our attachment to the form of the body, and then the imagination and the emotions and the mind and the unconscious. Then we come into the soul and we have a deep realization of the divine and our connection to it and our existing as part of God. And then beyond all that, we even let go of the soul, and we come to this realization of our oneness with a God that is spirit. And then there are actually octaves of the spirit. So you actually go into subtler differentiations of spirit, just like you could go through different octaves in the physical, like the physical astral causes. There's actually different octaves of the spirit. And then you come to a point as spirit where you go into states of spirit that are undifferentiated. You go to levels of spirit beyond the sound current and then that you can hear. It's still truth. It's still knowable. And this is where you'd find the silent ones and the source of the traveler consciousness and the source of all conscious that has distinction and definition. But if you really come into the fullness of that, our mind would want to map out that movement of consciousness like an upward projection or track where I'm moving up from the levels of these levels. I'm moving from the soul and I'm moving all these dimensions above soul, and I'm moving, and then I'm moving, and then I'm moving. I mean, now I'm a spirit moving, and the octave of spirit, and now I'm moving up into this dimensionality of the silent ones and God. And then you say, now I'm here. But the reality is that as you go up, I'm going to say it, you're not knowing that instead of this. You don't know the Godhead instead of the physical. When you come fully up into the Godhead, you know the entirety of all, which includes all the physical dimensions. And so God consciousness is a simultaneous awareness of all that is. And this is the true fulfillment of that remembrance. Some of the sounds that Alicia was sharing were vibrational sounds that resonate with some of those higher octaves of the spirit. And so they're wonderful to know and beautiful, but they're not as significant for us as the initiation tones you would have got through John Roger, John Morton, because those tones were charged by that traveler consciousness, which originates in that God source. And so because it originates in that God source, then those are the best key we have. However, as you start to move more and more into the higher dimensions, there are times where these other sounds may appear to you. And by resonating with them, that can help you know that reality that you're experiencing. So they're not a replacement for our tones, but there may come times for your consciousness where connecting to them and then resonating with them, and even perhaps saying them, will help you be more conscious of that higher state. So they could be an adjunctive thing that could be useful as you move higher in consciousness. And we've experimented and looked at those a bit. And at some point, we're going to teach more in-depth classes. And those will probably not be just a 1 hour thing. And we'll go into working with some of that. We did do a little class. It was a very little class a few years ago. And we did experiment a little bit with that. So it's something that is there. It's something that could be useful. But again, I want to emphasize it's not a substitute and shouldn't be a substitute for that which has been charged directly by the higher consciousness that comes out of that level.
I just wanted to add, it's more that you may hear them rather than trying to make anything happen. You're simply tuning in to what is occurring. And then by then repeating them, it can just amplify your awareness.
That's a good way to say it. That's kind of what I was trying to say. I think she said it better. So anyway, so a way of God's remembrance. I want to remind everybody something I've said in some of the other classes, but the emphasis is you are not going to God. God is coming for you. However, there's a lot you can do to create a receptivity for that God force or God form that is coming for you. So if you understand the process that's going on here is a process of you getting out of the way, and all the things you would do, let's say by chanting your initiation tone, you could understand it. Instead of seeing it as the thing that's going to get me, it's going to make it happen. It's preparing my consciousness to be receptive to both the instruction and the visitation of the higher consciousness of spirit. See, if the kingdom of heaven is at hand and the blessings already are, then there's nowhere God is not, then it's always happening. And the reality is it's always happening, and we're always part of what's happening. We just have forgotten that. So our whole game is a game of remembrance. So it's because of the way our minds work, we create models inside and then we follow those models, which is a model of ascension, a model of climbing, a model of moving up. And that works. That's what I do and what I've done. But I can tell you from the experience of it that really coming up into the heights of that model, I got to that point and all of a sudden the model reversed on me and I realized I was conscious as that was coming down into all of this. And then I started to become conscious of that was not only coming down into all this and moving up in all this, but was also pervasive of all of this. I'm suggesting this is all here for us. And I'm inviting each of you to make room inside of yourself for this experience. And the funny thing is, you may think, well, I'm not having it, so I must be doing something wrong. No, it's always here. That's why we start with the spiritual law of assumption that John Roger brought forward. And so we assume it's true. We say, so what I'm looking to do is become more conscious of what is so. You already have tools to use. You're getting some other tools, but my main offering to you is really less than another tool or another tone. It's much more, no, this is just clues about perception. They're like, if you can understand that and you can let yourself surrender to the idea, well, maybe if I were really God and I was really God looking at all this and living through all this, how would all this look to me? And then see, instead of looking for God, you become God looking. Now, I'm telling you, that's already going on. You are already God looking, but you may still be in this paradigm of time and space where you're trying to get past the distractions of time and space and look into God. And I go, that's just fine. That's part of the experience here. I'm just telling you, there is a level of truth and reality where God is looking back through all this and learning through all this. And that is an eternal truth. Whereas the situation of us looking from here into it is a limited truth. And it ultimately we'll find out it was illusion, meaning it wasn't permanent. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the sounds. I thought I had fun with it. And I think that's plenty for me to share. So we're going to turn it over to, unless you want to say something else?
When we did this class, how many was, I think it was 6 classes, is that right? 8 classes, and it was again for a small group of folks who'd been, immersed in this for many decades. And so we did the sounds going up into the higher realms, to our perception, up well into the many, 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 many levels above soul. And then there's an interesting thing we saw that we called, and again, it was something I had seen and was seeing for years and didn't tell anybody about, because I like to check things out before I share them. And Michael also saw it for many years, didn't tell anybody. And then we compared notes and we both were seeing the same thing, and we call it iterations. And the iteration, so the tones that we were doing in the beginning, where I was leading you through the meditation, those are more, now all of this I lie because there is no space. So when I say it's more vertical, it's, realms above, it's all here. But for our purposes, realms above. And then the iterations are more horizontal. So there's value to knowing at some point, it's not about going back in time or even forward in time, because we looked at iterations, for example, before the human iteration, and this is about free choice, right? Autonomy, individuation, free will, surrendering free will, but having the free choice to surrender. Before that was the angelic, which was about service. Before that, it was, and each iteration back was more ethereal. Before that, I believe it was manifestation. Before that was purpose. Before that was manifestation. And each one had a form, but each form was more and more gossamer. And then of course, we went forward. Well, what's after the human? Which that's a whole other class. Point being that it's not about going back to, what I was in the manifestation iteration. It's not going back in time or space. It's about going beyond time and space. And it's another tool to help us. We get to the point where it's like we surrender, we allow, we experience, and then we have these gifts from spirit. That's how the people in the class seem to appreciate it. These gifts from spirit that can be shortcuts, if you will, to just popping us out into that spirit where we utilize whatever we can when to be in that freedom. We want as much, as John Roger said, we want as much as our next breath. And so, and again, I'm trying to encapsulate something that we spent 8 classes on in several hours. So, but there's a lot of beauty and mysteries that can be unveiled, increasing our awareness. I love that John Roger named it movement of spiritual inner awareness, right? Not movement of love it all, vagueness, it's all great, which is true too. But it's that awareness that is so, to me, so golden, and something that he so richly guided and led us to. So, I don't know why I was called to share that with you, but for whatever that touched in you, please know that it goes beyond the information, which may not make a lot of sense because I'm describing something that's a bit complex. But if you let's just in this sort of heady discussion with taking a thought, whether it's a thought or an emotion, whatever that is that we're ready to sacrifice, and you may not know what it is. You may be keenly aware of what it is. It's anxiety, or it's, this judgment, etc. Whatever that is, and this is a John Roger technique. You put it in one hand, right? Either physically, you can hold your hand up like I am, or metaphorically, and then you couple it with the hue, or it could be God, or maybe it's traveler, whatever it evokes the spirit for you. So you take that thing that you're ready to let go of, even if you don't know how to let go of it, spirit does, and you lift both up and you let them go up together. And the spirit then transmutes that which identifies as less than spirit. And just let it all go. As it's said in the Bible, in the twinkling of an eye. And with that, Lee, we are ready for, yes, Michael, ready for sharing.
Thank you so much, Alicia. Thank you so much, Michael. And thanks to you both for your diligence with the microphone. It's just a pleasure to hear you both so clearly. I have guidelines for questions. Questions are to be about a way of God's remembrance and what Michael and Alicia have shared. To ask a question, please raise your Zoom hand. You can find that by hovering near the bottom of your Zoom window. Click on the React button. A pop-up appears. Choose Raise Hand. Please also turn on your video for full participation. If you are on a low bandwidth connection and are unable to, so be it. Most important, and since so many of us have had the blessing of working with Michael over so many years for assistance in clearing so many things, this is not that. Please do not ask questions of a personal nature, and do not ask Michael or Alicia for assistance in clearing. Questions are to be for your benefit, the benefit of those of us gathered, and those who will participate via the archives. We ask that you look to the integrity of your intentions before asking a question of Michael and Alicia, and thank you for your cooperation. As an extension of this, reminder for those of us who have been around, new information for those who are new, gathered here live, and especially for those who will find us via the archives. Michael is available, and this is the focus of his work during the week, to support people via private sessions for assistance with clearing things, with learning, and My best blessing, Michael serving as a mentor for me towards greater remembrance. Scheduling a session with Michael is simple. Visit awaketolove.com and click on the book an appointment. Finally, here is the legal consent for our sharing and questions time. By raising your hand and asking questions of Michael and Alicia, you are giving full consent to Awake to Love to make the audio and video of this gathering, including your sharing, available as online archives for anyone to access. Please do not raise your hand and do not share unless you are in full agreement. Thank you. Michael and Alicia, I see 7 hands manifest.
Okay, you could have just said that. He whispered a name. I'm like, they're probably gonna hear your secret really soon. Ardith, I don't know if I'm saying that right. Ardith, tell us how to say your name. Ardith, right? I mean, we know you, of course.
Yeah, Ardith, right.
Ardith, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
I've heard this. Now I can't see you for some reason.
You'll
Oh, there you
you'll
are.
see us in a moment. Yeah, he spotlights you for us so we can look
Thank
at
you.
you and then brings us on.
So I've heard this quite a bit over the last few years. And you said it again tonight, Michael, about God learning. And I was wondering if you could expand on that or explain it a little more, because if God is all knowing, and I've heard it also in terms of God learning through our experience, our human experiences. So I'd like to understand that better, because if he's all knowing, what does he have to learn? What's going on there? Love to hear.
I'll let Alicia start. This is going to be, she only gets to come once a month, so I want her to get lots of chance. So go ahead.
Well, okay. Yeah, it's an excellent question. I mean, just for fun, who else has that question? Who else is curious? Just raise your physical hand, and if you, I mean, you see, we're raising our hand, right? So yes, it's quite that, and the other classic question that we all hear the answer to and still wonder about is why the heck are all these, challenging things allowed to happen, right? And
Yeah.
so creation is complete to my awareness, right? Also still evolving, but time and space are constructs for the physical level, at least the physical level, right? So they're illusions, but they help us organize our karma. In my book behind me, my favorite illustration is, it says angels' karma is organized by God. So it's an image of an angel in a pastel, pale blue dress with, wings tucked to just so, perched on the banister of an alabaster staircase of karma. And our human is bulging eyes, frizzy haired, with prayer beads in one hand and a fifth of vodka in the other hand, slipping down the stairs on a divinely placed banana peel, right? So there's the challenge of our level. And so God is learning through us because we have free will. Angels are born in absolute remembrance. You did the angel classes, right? Humans are born. And when I say born, I mean through all lifetimes. We're born with free will. We're born with the free choice that angels evolved to as an archangel, which to my awareness, you have to be an archangel to then incarnate onto this planet as a human, because angels don't have free choice, right? So, and then humans evolve to that divine remembrance that angels are born in, that they remember God with every breath, right? So we evolve to that. So how is God learning through us? Everything is known, of course, by our infinite spirit, and yet God is learning through us as we learn. God is participating with every action, every thought, every feeling, every deed, even the crappy ones, right? So there are no mistakes. God is harvesting all those learnings through us and learning more, especially about itself and about its creation. And I'm saying it, which is kind of an impersonal pronoun for God, but obviously God is male, is, mother, father, God, well beyond gender. So God is learning as we learn, because God made the very courageous choice of creating us in God's own image, right? I'm sure you're familiar with that phrase of that. I think it was in God made man in God's own image, and God's own image made he man. I'm obviously paraphrasing. And I don't think that's, God has legs and eyebrows. I think it's that we have free choice. We have individuation. And then as we evolve enough, then we, of our own free choice, surrender that free choice and choose into, okay, God, something I love that Michael says is, I've lived all these lifetimes for me, this one I'll live for you. Right? And it's analogous. We were talking the other day, it's analogous to us being submerged underwater with like a scuba, someone with scuba gear, and they've got the tube up into the fresh air, but we've been submerged underwater, meaning in form, incarnate, right? We incarnate into the incarnation pattern once, we embody many, many times. We have lots of different bodies, right? So when we forget that we were submerged underwater and we have this breathing tube connecting us to the air. We forget we're not fish and that we don't have gills, and we forget our origin. And then we fully engage, because we forget about the fresh air above, we fully engage in our lives here, learn so much for God, right? And at one point, though, we start going towards the surface and ascending, and we're about to go to breathe fresh air, but there's this panic that can happen as we go higher, 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 higher. And then we get this resistance. No, I'll die. And at some point we say, well, then I'll die. But I want that breath. I want that free, undifferentiated spirit oneness with my beloved. So be it. Whatever, come what may. And when we absolutely surrender in that way, we release the resistance and we submerge and we take that breath, and it's the most natural thing we've ever done. And we remember, I'm not a fish. I don't need this breathing tube. I am the living child of God. Yea, I am one with God. Right? And it's tantamount to when we drop the body, we go to the halls of rest to get used to so much ecstasy. When my mother was dying, I was my mother, I have family, but she was really my only family, and we were very close. And she loved JR, and she was dying. This was about 3 years ago. And she died very suddenly. We only got 3 weeks notice. Actually, I walked into the room. My father had just died a few weeks before. And yeah, I know you were in my classes that I was teaching at the time, and had to keep delaying because my father died and then my mother died. And so I got those 3 weeks with her, which was so precious. When she died, and she died the day that I was actually going to fly back home, because she was in a coma and I wanted to see my son one day before he went off to college. And that morning I came in to say goodbye, even though she was unconscious and she was gone. And at first I sobbed. I went and laid under the magnolia tree that she had planted with her. My mother was a very gifted artist, worked in the cathedrals of Italy, and she planted this tree with very arthritic hands, this magnolia tree. And I went and lay under the magnolia tree, and I was sobbing. And then the angels came in and they said, do you want to know what death is like? And I said, yes. And so they said, follow her in spirit. So I followed her. And in an instant, my sobs went into ecstasy. And I saw that death is half a breath. It's the most natural thing, right? And when you let go of that half a breath, you're in this ecstasy of existence. So God, of course, is in the ecstasy of existence, that ecstasis. Us in these bodies, not so much, right? We can touch into that, but we don't walk around. I don't know about you, but I don't walk around in that. I think most of us don't. And that's where God is learning so much. And I wonder, did God know that we would return of our own accord? What a beautiful learning. What a beautiful lesson. So, and the last thing I'll say, and then I'll hand the mic to Michael, is we never know enough to judge, right? We just never do. So, because everything that we think, do, feel, act upon, yes, could we always make it better, higher choices? Of course. But God learns all the way up, right? And in every second. So there's no waste in spirit. There's no mistakes in spirit. It's all the ecstasy of existence.
Thank you.
Well, I think that was a good answer, pretty good answer. So why is God learning? Only God knows. Maybe God's just bored.
Well, something deeply touched me. So thank you.
Yeah. There's creation is so massive. We have that we can tap into in this, let's say from this level where we seem to be experiencing this physical. You know, we have this massive universe. And science is talking about, I remember reading one thing where they said, that they had traced light. It was something like 43 billion light years, and the light was still going, and they could track it, and there was still reality out there. So you kind of go, wow, it's billions of galaxies with billions of stars, and they may find out it's actually trillions of galaxies with billions of stars, but it's massive. And the information I have is that there's 108 universes, the 109th universe being created. So you think this is just one, and there's all those going on right now. And this God that creates all this will create an issuance of, from a point where there's, like in the Bible, it says there was darkness on the face of the deep. And God spoke and said, let there be light. And then creation came into being. But so an issuance of all this and all these universes, at some point, God will have extended these things, investigated. It's almost like an experiment. God does an experiment, creates a reality. Then God infuses itself into that reality to get every possible perspective on that reality, about that reality. So we, as individuals, let's say, give God a very particular perspective on reality, not on reality as it exists like spatially, but also the whole adventure of it, what it's like to exist and participate in it when you're operating under the assumptions of that creation. I remember talking to John Roger once about this. We were looking at these issuances, and we were actually going back into other issuances, which means things are no longer here. Because when the issuance is done, it's like the Tibetans with their sand mandalas. They create this incredible design, and then they study it for a little bit. And not that long, they're studying it. It's not like they said this is there for 3 weeks. They look at it and they go, okay, and they wipe it away and they start another mandala, which is sort of a certain way. That's kind of what God is doing. So we're reflecting, and I don't know how the question came. Well, how long is an issuance? And he just got quiet and looked inside. He's, well, the information I'm getting is that this issuance will last 375 billion years.
Oh my.
But then the question is, okay, but if there's a period between the issuances, you start to go, wow, well, I wonder how long that is. There's no way of knowing because there's no clock there. Have there been other issuances? There have been other issuances. This is not the first issuance. So this has gone on a long time. Now, at some point, God may run out of ideas of how to create a different kind of reality of creation. And maybe it'll be all over. In the essence of God, which is beyond all manifestations and forms, you would experience God as this total potential of anything. And so, there's a lot of amazing things we couldn't even conceive of that God could know. I mean, they're just, if you went into some of the other universes, there would be things there that would kind of be, you would be so lost. You say, well, in this universe, everything is gaseous or liquid, and the differentiation would be different viscosities of liquid. There's universes out there that are like, when you're in there, it's like different frequencies of light and streaks of lightning, and there's just combinations of the stuff that is so different than what we have here. And then there's some worlds in these universes that I can't see. I can tune into it and I can't possibly describe it. It is so different. And yet somehow this serves that greater purpose. So if we take the idea that we're here to learn for God, we could also, if the kingdom of heaven is at hand and God is always present, then we can understand God is learning through this expression. We may identify with this expression and say, okay, I'm learning. And what we might think is important to learn is, well, how do I get ahead? And how do I get that guy? And how do I make a lot of money? And how do I stay out of trouble? And how do I not get sick? But God's learning may be called, what's it like when sickness is in the body? What's it like when there's no food to eat? What's it like when everything goes wrong? What's it like when everything goes right? What is it like when all the wishes of a person seem to come true? What's it like? What's it like if we make this wish come true and the next wish not come true? You
That
kind
was
of go,
very,
excuse me?
sorry, I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, no problem. So there is infinite varieties. Hence, God's been busy with these issuances and these creations.
Well, I was very taken by the comment that Alicia made about God didn't know if we would choose to go back. That struck me.
Well, it's kind of wired in such a way that there will be an activation of remembrance because the conditions of the other dimensions are so much grander than this. If you ever have an experience like a near-death experience, maybe you're terrified, but when you pop away from the body, you're not in terror. The freedom of it is so exhilarating, it's hard to describe. It's like, wow, all the worries and all the fears and all the concerns are like gone. It's remarkable. And there's a peace I think they describe it the peace that surpasses understanding when you are just pure consciousness. But don't take my word for it. Do the process of awakening so you can have that. And you can have it before you die physically. So thank you for your question. It's a difficult one, but a good one.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you,
did you have anything else to? No, we're good.
Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you. God bless.
Bless you.
Michael and Alicia, please, may I have just a few minutes to update the participants with some information? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
It was 2 weeks ago that we outed from its slumber in the chat the information for those who would be inspired to make a donation to Awake to Love to support this beautiful work. And at the end of that gathering, when I had shared the logistics, Michael brought forward a beautiful expansion of I would call it a responsibility that he was called to, where here he, Alicia joining once a month, have been giving and sharing so much that it's important that there be a way that people can give back so that that is balanced. And so since then, these quick updates of how to make donations, of course, completely voluntary. And we have really enhanced and made most flexible the process for that. So I'm just doing a quick review of it here. First, recap of the focus. Your voluntary donations, small and large, sustain this free gathering and the email newsletters, allowing us to continue sharing spiritual teachings that benefit individuals and the community. And the single link that encompasses the different ways to accomplish this now, which has been beautifully refined, is an easy one to remember. It's awaketolove.com/donate. And that's also included in all the different menuing choices at the Awake to Love website. Lastly, I'd like you to see this image of the donation page. This is what has been really nicely enhanced since we shared this at last week's gathering. There are a variety of choices now. For those who like Venmo, click Venmo choice, Zelle choice. Then right here at this page, the opportunity to use a debit or credit card, simply entering the amount and click donate using debit credit card. A form appears to complete it. There's also a PayPal choice, a few other choices. The intention is that this be as graceful and as friendly a way as possible for those who are so inspired. And thank you to everyone for your loving support. Okay, thank you, Michael and Alicia, for that time. And please guide the next hand for us to activate.
Thank you, Lee.
Wherever you want.
Well, I am at a loss because I don't know who. Can you raise of those who have your hand raised, can you raise your physical hand if you have not shared with Michael in these gatherings? Most of you haven't shared with me because I'm not here very much. So if you haven't shared with Michael ever, especially, if you've never shared with Michael in a public gathering, then please keep your hand up. Okay, we have two choices. I mean, we want to get to everybody, but we do want to give people a chance who haven't had the chance. So the first hand I saw, we have two. I'm sure we'll get to, I think we'll get to both of you at least. Is first hand I saw was Aaron Michael, and then Katja will be after that. And then we'll see who else we can get to.
Hi.
Hi.
Right. I think when you were giving it's a simple question. I think when you were giving instructions earlier, you said something about putting something in your hand to give up, to be taken and released.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have missed part of the instructions, so I just wanted to maybe if you could just repeat that possibly.
Of
And
course.
yeah,
Of course. And then if you have a follow-up question, feel free, because it sounded
okay.
like you did. So it's a variation of a John Roger technique. Are you familiar with John Roger?
Yes.
Okay. So it's the John Roger technique, and it's one I heard quite a while ago. So I could be taking poetic license with it. But what I do very much remember is, would you mind holding this just for a second so I can use my hands? It's funny because today my son was teasing me about constantly using my hands to communicate. So I'm, I'm at a loss here. So what you do is you take whatever represents spirit to you. So it might be, and this in your right hand, and I'm just choosing a hand, might be the hue, it might be the traveler, it might be the Christ, an angel, the most ultimate positivity, the light, right? So that is being coupled with that which you want to release, right? So it could be a judgment, a hurt, a wound, limiting thought, etc. And you don't even have to know exactly what it is, but you do. Most of us know what our thing is that we want to sacrifice. So what you do is you couple this thing you want to let go of. Let's do it now. So in your right hand, everybody, if you would play with us, in your right hand, just be aware of either the hue, and sometimes you'll want the hue, sometimes you'll want the Christ, sometimes you'll want the Mother Mary. So whoever appears, that's in your right hand, the energetic, the essence of that, right? Because in that energetic, in that essence is perfection, is God learns through it all, is the Christ, is yea, I am one with God, right? So that's in your right hand. And in your left, put in, it could be something you're ready to let go of. It could be a physical illness. And it can have to be specific, right? So it could be a repeating thought. Aaron, can you just share with us something you want to let go of? Give us
Can
an.
I put two things at once, or is that too much at one time?
The spirit is not
Okay.
limited. Sure.
Okay. Well, I like to put obsession with food
Hmm.
and also fear.
Beautiful. So, and that's a great example because obsession with food is usually a recurring thought, which then results in an emotion. Yikes, give me the chocolate. Right? Mine is chocolate. I don't know what yours is. And then the fear. So fear is usually, again, starts as a thought resulting in an emotion, and it's often connecting to some sort of conditioning, right? Some sort of anxiety. And so it can be that. It can be just like that. It can be, I have this pain in my gut that I've gone to every doctor for. So it can be something, and I just know that there's something very subtly off. I don't know what it is, but there's this wisp between me and God, right? Blocking my awareness, whatever it is. So everybody, if you would, in your right hand is that aspect of spirit. And yes, you can have more than one. And in your left hand is that thing you want to let go of, or those things. And then I want you to really amplify that light in your right hand. Like, let it burn bright. It's God consciousness. It's the beloved. It's the God 27 levels above soul. It's the Trinity, right? In your right hand. And in your left is what you're ready to sacrifice. That is less than that. And you're going to couple both. And on the count of three, so we're going to lift them up together, lift them up together. On the count of three, we're going to let them both go and let the God transmute the less. 1, 2, 3, let them go. And often what follows that is a stillness, is a greater sense of lightness. And the beautiful thing with this is you can do it many times a day. You can do it whenever it occurs. Of course, I mean, Michael's the king of clearing and can get very fastidious with it, right? So sometimes we need boy, this is a deep thing. I need, a lot of specificity. And sometimes it's just, God help, God in this thing, let it go, right? And we could do it several times a day, or we can do it just when we think of it. And And I like adding to that technique, which again is a JR technique, um, a technique with the angels where our guardian angel, and this is something I just discovered myself recently, our guardian angel, if we have, this is very specific with thoughts, negative thoughts. Maybe I have this negative judgment about something somebody's doing or myself, right? We can ask their guardian angel to just take those thoughts out, right? To just lift them out and to replace them with light. And JR says light is living in God's holy thought. So let's try that. So if you have some thought like, I have a judgment on this or whatever it is, I'm scared about the election, I don't like my thighs, whatever it is, right? Whatever that thought is, I have hurt feelings about that. And now just ask your guardian angel, even if you've never talked to your guardian angel in your life, they've never left you from the second you were incepted this time around, right? Ask your guardian angel to remove those thoughts or that thought and to replace it with light, with God's thoughts, with the truth that all is love and that we're all just walking each other home. To paraphrase Ram Dass. So those are two techniques that I really like because they are not just trying to get rid of something, but they're coupling it with the spirit so there's transformation occurring. Does that make sense?
I loved it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Did you want to add anything? Okay. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for
Lovely to meet you
joining
too.
us.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay. And I think we already had Katya coming next.
Hi there. Thank you for
Hi.
calling me. And I'd love to continue on the God is learning through this, and we as souls are having human experience, so we are learning along. And one of the sessions before, Michael, you mentioned the higher records where the soul's learnings are recorded, if I got that correctly. So wondering if you could talk more about that, and Alicia as well on the angelic side.
There's the Akashic records that most people know about. You would find those in the upper part of the causal realm. And it's a record of basically everything that transpires. There is a record of what the soul takes out of each life. That's kind of where it gathers up the learnings that are important to the soul. Those are stored in records that are found in what are called the Rukumuni canal, which is between, you go up through the levels, through the physical, the astral plane, the causal plane, which is emotional, the mental plane of reality, this more ethereal or unconscious part of this very symbolic level. And then there's a passageway between that and this level we would call the soul realm or soul dimension. And in that passageway, towards the very top, is what we call this Rukumuni canal, is this place where these records can be found. And they're called the Nakal records. There's the Solic records. There are records beyond that too, but they're very, very hard to access. You have to really have to be in a spirit conscious to really know that. To read the Nakal records, you would have to be coming into it with soul consciousness, because it's in the etheric, so it's unconscious, but it's kind of like a passageway between the soul and that. So you could come down into it through the soulic consciousness. You might be able to get a sense of what's there. They're not read by a lot of people. A lot of people say they are, but they're not really. It's hard to do. And the other records are, I don't know what the requirement is. Just you have to be in essentially have to be in a spirit consciousness. Now you might be able to do it through the great angels because they can read it. And so they can, because they are spirit, they're existing in a spirit form. They're not, the great archangels aren't existing as souls. They're spirits. They're individuations of spirit itself. So you could get it that way. They might get it for you. So there's ways you could get that information and then in some ways bring it back here. So I don't know if that helps you, but it's there, and it's there as another carrot in the awakening process. I
Yeah,
wouldn't seek that as a primary goal. I'd seek a remembrance, and a byproduct of remembrance is that could be included in there. But suddenly you would suddenly have that knowing. But it's there and it's possible.
Is there a difference between the karmic records and the soul's learning, or is that the same record?
That's a tricky one. Well, karma means action. So the karmic records would be record. You could say the record of what's happened. So that sounds like the Akashic record. But you could also, it's almost like you can look at anything from the perspective under law. You would look at things very much in terms of what happened and trying to balance out to get the equal opposite reaction for everything that happened. But under grace, the focus is more on learning. So you'd say, well, what was the purpose here of learning, and what is still yet to be learned? That's doing it more under grace. So working more under grace would be more aligned with the Nakal record. Working under law would be more under alignment with the Akashic record. I would definitely prefer to do it under the learning approach, because that is the great opportunity that Christ brought to us.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Okay. So which you guys are. So I don't know if you're hearing them, but our dogs have been running around and around and around, and like, it's been a good practice and focus. So yes, I have definitely used that cheat code of the great archangels reading. So when I started working with people, so I've been hearing the angelic language, as you know, because you're in some of our classes for decades now, and so that would allow me to then really connect to the great archangels. So there's Googleplex angels, a few million archangels. These are obviously rough estimates, and about 150 great archangels. So these are the highest. Some are the silent ones, very high, pristine beings, as Michael said, are pure spirit. They don't have souls. They're well beyond that. And they came into this issuance or creation, certainly into this creation already pure spirit, right? So, and then they keep evolving. So when I very first started as a spiritual counselor, and try sitting next to this guy and like, I needed some help, right? So I would speak the angelic language, and they would go read the Akashic records for me, right? Cool. Now I could clear past lives and all that. And what I really had to learn to do was stare stupidly at people for quite a while the information, and not let my mind come in and just sit in that silence while the information was coming in. And then at one point they're like, no, you do it. Like, don't bug us, right? You go read them because you can read them, right? I'm like, whatever. Okay, fine. So then I started doing that, and then they would still read the Nakal records. And again, I would, connect in the angelic. And then at some point I'm like, no, seriously, guys. They're like, okay, you got it. So because they will pick the training wheels out when we're ready. And then, they definitely still will read the higher records, the Book of Love. And that's usually only if there's a pristine service with it. But I would say to you, love, and to all of us, including myself, it's not something to go look for. If it's calling you, right? That was my experience, is it was calling me so I could serve. When I first started learning his work, if you will, it was really to help him, because he was working with JR constantly, middle of the night and traveling and so often. And then he had a full client load because I had, 2 babies, one sick one. And so he was supporting us and then working with JR. It was just hours and hours and hours. And I wanted to be able to clear him. Like I wanted to be able to assist him because he was giving so much to JR and to all these people. I didn't actually think that I was going to be a practitioner. It didn't even enter my mind. I promise. That was my original impetus. And then I got, pretty decent at it. So then I started doing it for free. And then then the line got too long. And that's when I started it. He actually made me start charging. True story. True story. Because he explained something that I think will be useful for a lot of us. He said, if you're not charging enough, or especially if you're not charging anything, and you're giving more to people than you're giving a lot to people, they will discount the value of what they're receiving so that they don't have a karmic debt to you. And I went, oh, I need to charge them then so that they don't discount that value because they were getting value and I didn't want them to. And I understood that because none of us want to have a karmic debt or any kind of debt. I hate debt or dislike debt. Not a fan of debt. So that's why I started charging. But my point being is it was a service, right? It was because reading past lives in the way that Michael has taught me to do it, it's certainly not past life regression, and it's going very slowly, and it's telling people the minimum amount they need to then cut the cords and come fully present. So to my awareness, it really has to be about service. I love the records. It's quite beautiful, and I loved his description of them. And the gold is the remembrance.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Lovely to have you. Okay. Can you see the people? You can't? Can you see now? There's 4. Is there anybody else who's never shared with Michael or myself for that matter? Just raise your physical hand because your hands are obviously raised. Anybody who hasn't shared with either of us? No. Okay, now it's free game. Free game. Free choice.
Pick either that one or that one. Your choice.
Either that one or that one.
Yeah.
I think you've got to make a commitment here, dear.
I don't like commitments.
Pretty good with commitments.
I'm actually
You
but
actually are.
I think we'll try and do them both.
I can't see what time it is. We're on a different screen.
Let's start with Brenda.
Start with.
And if we can, we'll do Clea Rose too.
So we'll start with Brenda, then we'll go to Clea, and if we have more time, we'll do a bonus round. You're muted, love. Just need to, on the lower left of your screen, of your phone, looks like, just click unmute. Lower left, Lee, sweetie, if you could ask her, you probably already have, but ask her to unmute.
Wonderful.
Yes.
There we go. Yay.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
I just want to recap a couple of things. The first time I shared with Michael and you, Alicia, it was about Socrates and going, Michael, you cleared me for thousands of years. And it was just amazing for days. I could feel a whole new letting go, letting God. Then about 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 days later, Socrates actually came to me in the middle of the night when I was asleep. And I was stirred awake by my guardian angel. And I did the check, who is it? And it was Socrates. It came with so much love, and the healing went so deep. The love went so deep. So thank you, Michael. It really assisted me to move forward from something I'm not quite sure of. So thank you. And what I got, I was asking last night, I can't see you.
Oh, you will. You will in a moment. He just has
okay.
us on. You will in a moment.
Oh, the last session, beautiful session. They're all beautiful. You answered a lot of questions that were really deep inside myself. And I asked to, when I was going to sleep, I asked my guardian angels, could I go, was there a consciousness called divine remembrance? And if there was, could I tune into that? And so I guess underneath that question, is there a consciousness of divine remembrance? And then this morning I was thinking, I was getting that if I ask you the question, which I've had and known about for quite a lot of, probably 20 years, about the Elohim. And when you talked to Alicia about the sound, when I have the experience of the Elohim being present, I hear like they're not singing, but there's a tone, and it's so harmonious. So that energy is very powerful. And then I saw some golden flame angels. And I thought, well, I'm just wondering how all this ties together through remembrance. And the other thing that, just adding what, talking about dying, I was with my doctor yesterday, and he said, well, you've had 12 cardiac arrests since you were 22, and you've gone up there. And the last time I went last year, I was given to make a decision whether I'd come back or not. And that was because I'd been up before, I knew where I was, and it's really, really beautiful. And then I said to God, if you've got anything else for me to do in this world you'd like me to go back, I'll leave the decision to you. Then I woke up with all these drips and everything. Anyway, so it's just putting all of that together. In my ministerial blessing, it goes, the deepest desire in my heart is to go home. I will find my way home because it's the deepest desire in my heart. So with that comes, if I've had 12 going up there and coming back this lifetime, do you get a new birthday and a new start? Or so I was going through the calendar and I'm thinking, well, 12, maybe I'm under 12, all the 12 star signs now. Anyway, that's just a bit of fun. So if either of you got anything to share with that, I'd be really grateful, because I was asking, can I ask a question that'll be beneficial for everyone?
Michael is tagging me. Well, I think that's a gorgeous question. And I think it is a question for everyone. I'm going to answer parts of it, and then I'm going to let somebody who knows a heck of a lot more than me, which is a great archangel, answer the rest of it. And we'll see. And then if at any point you're ready to jump in, just let me know. The Elohim do come in on a tone. So when I was talking about the tone, I said this is not something you could certainly, I'm going to hedge on what I said of like, don't pursue it. You could certainly chant the tones. An easy one to remember and to our awareness, one of the very highest is simply the Ah, A-H. And so you could chant it. This would be well, well, well above soul. But the tones, the higher sounds, which I only shared a few of them, that we worked with, there's tones going up vertically, and then there are also tones that relate to the iterations I shared about. And the Elohim are really more, you could relate to them more as pure sound and light rather than beings. They're more beingness. They're not as high as the great archangel, but there's very few great archangels, as I shared, right? So working with a whole group of Elohim could be, again, angels don't relate to hierarchy, so this is not an either or. It's really more, who do you have heritage with? Again, why my book's called Your Angelic Ancestry, right? It's like, who do you have heritage with is probably going to take you up higher than, I just like Archangel Michael or something, right? So the Elohim are very fascinating because in Judaism, Elohim is tantamount to God, right? And Elohim actually means God beings or God man, curiously enough, right? Except it's a plural noun. And Judaism is very much a monotheistic religion, God, not gods. So then they go, well, who are the Elohim, which means basically God beings? And then at some point, probably in the Kabbalah, a more esoteric arm of Judaism, they went, oh, high angels, very high angels, God-like angels, as God beings. So when we have a heritage with the Elohim, and actually everybody right now, if you want to experience this, they've just come in. So just open your heart, and they come in on gold. So you said you saw gold angels, so they're tying some of this together for you. They come in often in a burnished gold, just a brilliant gold, like the sheen off a gold piece of jewelry where it's blindingly bright, but there's a subtle gold color to it. So be aware and know that these are very high beings. Of course, we're in the light for the highest good. They're very much on the team of the traveler and the Christ, all one. And these God beings are here to help give you more of an experience of, yea, you are God, yea, you are in divine remembrance. You've always known this and you always will. And you simply consented to lose sight of shore for a short time, or a long time, depending on how you look at it, to embody and incarnate for God and bring all your learnings back to God. But who you are never left shore. Who you are is always walking the white sands of the shore of the beloved, along the ocean of love and mercy. So be aware now of your feet on the sand and your consciousness over the ocean of spirit itself. And you say, well, how could my feet be in the sands and my consciousness be in the ocean at the same time? Because none of it is real. It is all a beautiful symbol of the beloved. And so you can be one with the sands and one with the ocean of love and mercy and one with the air and one with the angels and one with the traveler. And you can now, as an exercise from the Elohim, put your awareness in the ocean, now on the shore, now with the angels, now with the traveler, now on the 23rd level above soul, now deep in the core of the earth with the Tuan, with the Christed core. See, you don't know how to do that, but the God being that you are does. And so open your awareness, drop your reference points, and know that all that connects it all is love. And through all of that is a tone, the tone of the Elohim, which is one of those high sounds that we talked about. Not one of the sounds I shared, and I'm not being guided to share that now, but perhaps in future classes or in our school. But they do come in on the most gorgeous tone. And I don't know how you could make that tone with human tongue, but you can make an approximation of it. And that tone might sound like if you struck that burnished gold with a tuning fork, and that tone that you would hear sent you into ecstasy. That would be the sound that comes in with the Elohim. So do you have any questions about that before I hand the mic to Michael?
That's really good. It's when I'm tuned into I don't know whether I go to them or they come to me, but they gave me a sound, but it's very in the silence, and I'm just I did go into an ecstasy of sleep last night. And when you were saying, you know, the angels, I've had great attunement to the great archangels for quite a long time, for 20 more years. And I call them Archangel Michael and his team.
Beautiful.
And so each time I've gone up there, I have got more. And because I'm still in getting better. Thank you for all these keys. I can put my heart in this hand and get it healed.
Mm-hmm.
I was being, the angels will give me a whole lot of ideas of how I can add that more to the Emerald Healing Ray. And so I'm getting ready now to drive my car again. And so I feel like I'm about like moving in another phase, and that's really good. So, and I needed to thank you, Alicia, for the diamond lights. So when I was coming back and going forth with these last 3 cardiac arrests I had, I was using the diamond light all the time. The angels were telling me what to ask for, what to do with the blood they were giving. And it was just happening so fast, but it was really quiet.
Mm-hmm. That's Miriel is who she's referring to, brought forward the diamond white. What's that?
I did that class with you years ago, and so I knew, and it came back, and that's why I'm thanking you, because it came. Whatever I needed to know was coming to me, what to do.
I'm amazed at the healing stories I've heard from that one meditation. So that's on my YouTube channel. You just YouTube Alicia Doss, or just YouTube Diamond White Light Healing Meditation. It's very short.
Said that when I was like unconscious,
Uh-huh.
they said, and I just agreed to it, and it was like it was so multidimensional what was happening to me in all those experiences, and that was my question really. I seem to have a lot of remembrance about a lot of things, and so that's why this class is really good for me, because
beautiful. Well, I'm so delighted to hear that the diamond white light meditation, the healing meditation, was helpful for you. I use it quite a bit, and thank you for your sharing. I'm going to give this to.
I'm good. I don't have anything to show. Let's go to the next person. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, love. Lots of love and light to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. We have Clea, and I can't see on the screen what time it is. I have no idea. Oh, it's 8:25. Oh, yeah, we have a little time. 8:21. Okay. So Clea Rose.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Where are you in the world?
I'm sitting in Bali in a very, very hot villa, so I'm pouring with sweat.
How fun. We went to Bali for our honeymoon.
Oh, did you? Oh, cool. It's really beautiful. So yeah, I've been here for a while now, and with my partner Mark. So he's got business in Indonesia, and so I'm living here at the moment.
How fun.
Yeah, no, I very much like the environment of Bali. I like the nature energy. It's good. It's very good earthing for me.
Very earthy. Yes.
Yeah, really nice connection with nature. It's beautiful. So yeah, wow. I just jumped on the call. I saw the email this morning when I woke up in bed, and I'm like, I'm going to go to that. So here I am. And I've really enjoyed all the sharings. This is my first time on the call.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Welcome.
Thank you. And so thank you for doing it. So yeah, after listening to all the sharings, I'm just been going all over, way outside my mind. So I'm now like, what was I going to talk about? And of course, as often happens in these sort of things, everyone that shared was a little piece of me that I've been, just clearing and working with and getting a lot of value out of it anyway. So it's just been absolutely beautiful. I think what is present is I watched something with Michael a couple of days ago where he was talking about sort of a call. I don't know if it was in an email or what, but I was like calling people forward that are wanting to be of service in this fulcrum or something, like this change of consciousness in the planet. So I'm definitely someone that feels a tremendously deep connection to that. And I feel that I want to just fully participate in it, not partially. And it's interesting. I wanted to just share a little bit about the sort of, because basically I have a level of, sometimes I'm often telling myself I'm not doing enough. Like that I'm not physically, there's something, like I just had a practice for 3.5 years doing body work. I did reflexology and massage. I got trained, and then I had a beautiful practice 5 days a week. And it was so fulfilling and so loving. And I was so grateful for that. And I've actually given that away for a while because it was also, anyway, I don't want to waffle on, I want to get to the point, but now I'm sitting in Bali and I'm back to like, what am I going to do with the next part of my life? And I don't think setting up another clinic I can't see that as something to do. And what I often come back to is just being, and I still can only see myself. Is that okay?
You will see us in just a moment. He just is spotlighting you so we can see you.
Okay. Yeah, that I psychically, I feel that I'm like really, really, really awake on a certain levels, and higher consciousness levels, but I just don't allow myself that here. And it's almost like I don't really want it. And there's a deep, like, especially since my soul initiation, when I look at the timeline, I've got such a tremendous sense of peace inside. It's just like, I don't know, it's like I'm in the arms of God all the time. But no one would know that. and I still go through all the crazy stuff in the world, like, things are whatever, difficult, weird, but I feel this peace. And I don't even know what my question is. But it's like this mind thing keeps coming in and telling me that I have to be better and do more. And I've heard you both share about this recently, that yeah, that's almost like a trap. But it's really hard to let go of, because I feel like I'm already like, yeah, I'm already what I need to be. And so, yes, if that's enough information for you to go on to say something, I really don't know what else to share about it, but I just really want to step forward in being a really beautiful anchor of light on this planet, and love and forgiveness, and for whatever highest outcome, also knowing that it's all perfect and it doesn't really matter. So it's, yeah, that weird dichotomy. Anyway, that's what I had to share.
That's sweet, beautiful. I think when I listen to what you're saying, related to the sharing I did last week, which to say I did, it was kind of not really true, because there was a presence that came and visited the talk we were doing last week, and I just relayed the message. People who noticed I was talking very slowly because I just want to make sure I got it right. There's basically a messaging about that there's a huge shift going on, and where the word they gave was a fulcrum. Fulcrum is like something that helps things turn a direction. And we're at that time. And so it's a tremendously powerful time. And, you're kind of saying, well, I want to step forward or step up. And it's strange. The way this might work more accurate is what you do is in a certain way you step back. And stepping back means, you just do less. No, you just be less. You let it do its purpose through you. You allow it to live through you and love through you. So it's just started to do that to you while I'm talking to you. So there you go. That thing you're feeling is that is this spirit force that is serving a higher purpose and bringing a powerful force of awakening, a force of liberation into the world. It's not something we do, we surrender to it, and then we do as it leads us to. But it's not a willful thing in us. It's a surrendering our will to the divine will. And the master that gave this master that has a lot of accountability into this planet, is one of the masters very much connected metaphysically to the Christ action that's to come forward in the Aquarian age. And so, not somebody I've dealt with before, but it's not a regular occurrence for me. I was a little surprised he showed up. But we're in the United States, we're in an interesting time.
You want to tell the name?
It was Saint Germain.
Mm.
Okay. So he does come around when there's interesting changes in direction of how the spirit is working into this level. And so regardless, it doesn't know who brought the message. The reality is the message true for you, and are you called to surrender to it and be a vehicle, a vessel to it? We're kind of in an extraordinary time. It was I wrote some articles, short articles, 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's called Karmic Cycles, because I was kind of guided to do that. And part of how they explained the challenge, the centrality of what was going on, a lot of it was, let's say, United States oriented, but it's also world oriented about, let's say, the unfolding of consciousness and the unfolding of karma. And part of the way I was writing those was related to the process of karma as it was related particularly to the United States. However, right now, United States is the most pivotal central power country in the world, and anything that goes on there ripples into every other country. Now, there are other times that was different. If we went back 12,000 years ago, that would be Atlantis. If we went back 2,000 years ago, that'd have been Rome and the Roman Empire. Everything that happened there rippled into everything else. So we're just in an interesting time. One of the things I wrote about in the article is they showed me a patterning of how I could understand it through astrology. I don't really do astrology, but I understand a little bit about it. So I thought that was interesting. And they showed me this confluence of when certain planets were in certain signs of the zodiac, these things would happen. And sure enough, when they showed me that, you say, oh, whenever that happens, like the United States is in a major war. Or when this happens, there's this huge shift of consciousness where there's new ideals, new ideologies, there's civil wars. And so I kind of go, oh, so there's sort of a rhyme and reason to all of this. But I noticed there was these three worlds that they were focusing on as representative of these shifts of consciousness. And they each had a particular sign of the zodiac they'd be in when this happened. And just came to me called, wow, has there ever been a time when each of those planets is in that part of the zodiac where this big thing happens? And I was curious about it. So I found a book we could look back, and the book looked back through this thing, and it was very, because it went back a long time. It went back 7,000 years. I could look at it. And I said, I look back, well, in the last 7,000 years, there's never been a time when those three have been in those particular signs, except in the year 2025 and some of 2026. Those three will be in their signs, which has not happened in 7,000 years. And I don't know when it happened before that. So it's kind of an indicator this is a big time. And we all kind of sense it, all the craziness in the world and the confluence of things, and the climate is changing, and the wars and the potential of where that might go, what that may mean. And as that is all going on, there's an extraordinary movement of consciousness that's happening. It was interesting. I was led to something just the other day. It was actually yesterday. I was guided to look at something. I looked, and it was something to do with Edgar Cayce. And I go, huh. And I was tracking down and said, Edgar Cayce predictions for 2024. I go, oh, 2012. I didn't know he ever did that. I tracked it down and he said, in December of 2024, there will be this thing that happens which opens the consciousness of mankind. And there will be a great consciousness of awakening and shifting of consciousness. Now, he wasn't necessarily right about everything, but he was pretty amazing how accurate he was about a whole lot of things. So I kind of go, yeah, we're kind of at that time. We're kind of at that time. And it's frustrating for us as individuals because a lot of these things that are playing out are so big in scale and scope in the world. But what can I do as an individual? Well, I can vote. I could maybe march in a rally and hold a sign. I can send light. But what was offered here is called yes, but more than that, you can surrender to this greater force and power that has extended itself in answer to spirit purpose.
Mm.
This is also very much connected to the great archangels, and they're coming more present. Alicia's been teaching about this conversion of the angelic and human. All of this is coalescing into this time because it serves a purpose on the timeline of God for this world of the shift to happen. And we can be more available to it by letting go and letting God and letting it come through.
Mm.
Now, it was interesting that Saint Germain was the one that came to do it. It was very interesting when John Roger had a sharing a couple of years before he passed. And it was a very interesting sharing because I didn't think he would share that night. He was very not well. All of a sudden he got up and came up and he started talking. And he started talking to the different people that were very significant in his spiritual group that were there, that kind of ran it, took over. And they started he started talking about it. And at that moment, Saint Germain came to me. It's the last time I remember really coming. And he started talking to me about it. And I got up and asked John Roger, and he just acknowledged that this consciousness he worked with was splitting and start working through different people. So it could have a greater reach to serve the purposes of the time. So when Saint Germain comes in, I listen because I don't see him very much. So since you asked about that, I'm talking about it. But that fulcrum action is very much called. This is one of those shifting points, turning points. So the more light we bring into it, the more the shift is going to be more in alignment with our preference. So it's not a doing, it's a letting go and letting God thing for you here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I would add, well, just very quickly, something JR said that struck me so deeply, and I never forgot it. He said, and it's an excerpt on I think it's on the Momentum tape series, CD series, MP3 series, and Momentum Letting Love Lead. It's one of the excerpts. And JR says, if you're not getting it, you're not claiming it. And he was talking about consciousness. So just right now, if we could each claim that we are for the highest good, waking up, that we are remembering more and more, and thus serving the purpose of the Spirit at this pivotal time. And often our greatest service is to wake up. And so let us claim that in alignment with God's will. And perhaps we just say, yes, Lord, thy will be done through me as me, one with love itself, having its way and choosing back into itself at this time on the planet. For the highest good. Amen.
Amen. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Beautiful.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're going to conclude. I'm going to let you do the closing meditation, my love.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Well, I think we'll do a tag team closing blessing. Thank you all for allowing me to join in to crash your to be a crash your date here, your Michael date. It's always a delight to be with you all, and I like to scroll through the screens and see who's present and just send you each light. So thank you so much for joining tonight. We'll see you in a month, if not before. And let's, thank you for the sparkly fingers. So sparkly fingers, that's my people who've done my classes. We do sparkly fingers, which is just a way of sending so much sparkles and love to each of us. And it's also a way of clearing our energy field, by the way. So, if we would, thank you for the hearts and the sweet emojis as well. So much love to you. So much love. So, my angels, let's just move into the one accord and receive the incredible blessing pouring forth from Spirit. And we just let go one last time, sending it up with a light to anything that has been released, any negativity or karma. We just let it all go, that it might be transmuted. Anything that has been released or that can be released or that will be released in our night travels, that we might be the shimmer of the Holy Spirit. And we open and we just are aware of a baptism of light from the most high realms of light, that it's flowing from these highest realms, unfathomably high, through any parts of us on whatever level we find ourselves, light streaming through us, baptizing us, cleansing us, restoring us to original innocence, to our original state, which is always love. That light flows from the highest realms through our consciousnesses, through any aspects, any manifestations of our soul, of our spirit, all the way now and coming to rest and pooling in our heart chakras. And then rushing down and washing all through our chakras and going and anchoring into the core of the earth, that we might be ultimately expanded, ending as we began. Heaven on earth, heaven as earth, spiritualizing the physical, knowing that this end is just the beginning. At the end of the Camino de Santiago, there is a cross, a special cross called the Cairo. And usually it's the Alpha and the Omega, but that's the Omega and the Alpha, which means the end is the beginning. So any endings we are experiencing are simply beginnings. For God, in a never-ending cycle of love, blesses itself through us and as us, freely choosing back into loving. And that never-ending spiral of loving forms a heart and joins each of our hearts now as one.
We open just now to receive the blessings of our Lord Jesus. We open to the oneness, love that encapsulates all existence and encapsulates each of us. But it doesn't separate us, it unites us. It unifies us as one. And in the power of that oneness, our loving and our serving is magnified. So let us each choose into that and let go into God and be utilized. Bless us all. We send light to this world, particularly in the coming week, and all the dynamics that will unfold. Amen. And thank you all. So be it. Amen. Baruch Hashem.
Amen. Thank you. We love you.